I don't know how to describe it other than like it couldn't have gone any better. Like nobody really thinks of like, oh, I want to be proposed to on the Sea of Galilee. Like that's a stretch, but it happened.
Welcome to the Israel Collective. I'm Nair, joined by a content creator, an amazing content creator, but really just one of the most awesome people I know, Chelsea Hurst. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. It feels good to have a conversation with you after like months have gone by since our last Israel trip.
I know, right? You know, speaking of Israel trips, you probably have one of the most unique stories in Israel Collective history. Your husband, Nick, is just somewhere on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
So if you can you kind of walk us through the story of what happened on the Sea of Galilee that one fateful day?
Yeah. So I've been to Israel twice with the Israel Collective, and it was a blessing to go the first time and to have like the whole engagement story happen. I got engaged on the Sea of Galilee on the boat. It was crazy. But basically the second day that we were there, Nick, my now husband, had like this whole plan for, proposing to me. He had several different, I think, options or things that were in his head of like, oh, this would be a great place in Israel. Oh, this would be a great place. And I think he wanted to do it on the steps at first, like the steps going to, like the steps that Jesus walked. And that day it was particularly like super hot and really, really bright outside. And so he was just like, all right, scratch that plan. I have to come up with something else. But I didn't know any of this. I mean, the day that this happened, I was in my hotel room and he came by in the morning and said, hey, what are you wearing today? Like, we're gonna, take a lot of pictures in Jerusalem, and I'm just really excited to like get a bunch of content and everything. And we were planning on recording while we were there, and we did. Like, we were recording the whole trip, so it was very seamless. And I had like this thought though in the back of my mind of like, there's definitely something up right now. Like, he never tells me to wear makeup, but he told me to wear makeup.
So you had an inkling.
Yeah, I had an inkling. And I was like, I had dreamt, like, since I was a little girl, of like getting proposed to in like in Europe. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Eiffel Tower, but that thing is beautiful. And I couldn't have imagined though, like a proposal, this engagement, like have gone any better. Like the way that it happened was, we were, I think, at sunset. Was it sunset? We were on this boat. We all got on a boat. I knew very little people so far. Like the second day, you're getting to know a bunch of people you've never met before, and they're all amazing, like singers, actors, content creators, like, writers. And basically I got proposed to in front of a bunch of people I hadn't really met yet, became like my family. And before he got down on one knee, he like shared this little mini message basically talking about the Sea of Galilee and its importance, and the scripture of like Jesus walking on water, and he calmed the waves and the wind. And it was very windy that day. Like, you could watch the video and see that our hair was flying everywhere. And my friend Nikki Phillippi was in the corner, and you could see her reaction like whenever Nick got down on one knee. And I was just laughing the whole time. I watched all the pictures, and Sammy Lopez when he was like, oh, like in the back. It was just really, really cool to look back on. And I did not see it happening that way. Like, the whole day had gone by and I didn't really expect that anything would happen, but it did happen. And now that I look back, I have like this really cool moment to like remember, and it's captured on video. So I get to show that to my kids one day and just be like, the first time I ever went to Israel and got to see where Jesus lived, breathed, and, hung out with his disciples and everything, I got proposed to there. And it's just really incredible. I don't know how to describe it other than like it couldn't have gone any better. Like, nobody really thinks of like, oh, I want to be proposed to on the Sea of Galilee. Like, that's a stretch, but it happened.
I knew it was happening that day, and you're right. Like, that was one of the first days, and now we can talk about this later. When you go through the Israel Collective experience, you become this family, right? Your trip was just some hip hop artists, some YouTubers, like all over the place. But by the end of it, that was a really special group. But at the time, we didn't really know each other super well. And I knew it was happening. So Nick was like, "Hey, like, can you film it?" So like, at this point, I've known you for like 48 hours. I'm like, "All right, here we go." And I was out there filming, and I got like right up close, and I got a pretty good shot. I think you guys used some of that footage.
Went back and forth between your footage and Dan's footage because Dan was recording too.
That was so wild. Oh,
I know. How did it feel to like have the first proposal ever be on the Sea of Galilee?
Dude, how cool is that though? Like, I mean, like, yes, I am a Francophile. I love Paris. It's beautiful, but like, people do it. The Sea of Galilee. That's amazing. Like, and Nick's little sermon. I was like, dude, this guy's smooth. Like, I knew it was coming, but the way he was acting, I didn't know it was coming. He was just preaching, and then he's like, does this little flip, and he's like, "Hey, girl," and he gets down. I'm just like, that's my boy right there. Oh man, that was amazing.
So and I feel like with the family aspect of the Israel Collective and that trip, just being able to have that moment with all those people, and like nobody else, like not even my close friends were there in person, but they were, and we always get to, make that a memory that we all experienced together back in our minds. And it's great. I love like talking to Kaylin and Kyra about it, and like some of the people who live in Atlanta now. I mean, they were once in LA, now they're in Atlanta, and we're all like in the same area. So it was a blessing. I'm so grateful.
Everyone's moving to Atlanta now. Everyone's leaving California where I live. I'm like, all the good people are leaving. But you know what? Let's talk about that squad, because Kaylin, Kyra, like Spec, Derek, like what an amazing group of people. And obviously I know what your number one memory was. We just talked about it, but like, what are some of the other things that you took away from that trip?
Gosh, there's so many. I would say the second, like most just profound moment I think I experienced there was when we were at the garden tomb. Everybody talks about this. Now, if you've watched a lot of Israel Collective videos, you know that the garden tomb is really special. But it's just the experience that we had and the talk that we had as a group together in like this almost like underground room, and it was near like the chapel area. I think it was called the chapel, right? The room that we were in?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were in there, and I think that a lot of people had just been going through a lot, like very unique situations, a lot of bitterness, a lot of hurt, and it felt like a place where people just were able to just like let it out and just like receive healing and be able to just like confess what they were going through. And everybody was like prayed over, and we just went around the room and like just encouraged one another. And I was just like, what? Like, I've never experienced anything like that before. And just the fact that nobody on that trip, nobody ever talked badly about one another behind each other's backs. That is something that is very rare in any friendships you hear about. Like, nobody had any problems with one another. And I'm like, geez, like we need to go back. So I think that moment was just really like profound, because everybody was truly looking out for one another and just really wanted them to be functioning at their best and to receive the healing that they needed. And I don't think it was the fact that place was like just, this magical healing place, but that it almost set the stage for, this is what Jesus died for, is for us to forgive ourselves, forgive one another, and to like walk in the freedom that he's so given us. And it just had such a profound, I think, place in my heart. And just to be able to think that, continuously he offers that to us every day.
Let me ask you two more questions, and I'll let you get back to Nick, because Nick is awesome. What is like one little nugget of information or something you picked up that you weren't expecting? Something that wasn't what people perceive it to be over there?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I went into the experience like with very little expectations. I think I'm just of like no expectations type person. A lot of people have these like things in their mind of what they expect, but I didn't expect, though, when I was thinking of the culture, I'm a very big culture person everywhere I go. And I love experiencing like the cultural foods, the way that people speak to each other, the way that the air feels. And I didn't expect that so many religions and groups of people could coincide in one place, yet it feels so peaceful. But all you hear about on the news is these people hate these people and it's war and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I've never seen it. Like, we don't see that. And I think it just kind of shows how, the world is very, it magnifies fear and often like not what is truly like truth. And so when I was there, I was shocked at how like everybody got along and they had their rhythms to their days and the rhythm to their week. Like all the Jewish people, they were so excited for Sabbath weekend. Like nobody works or touches the buttons in the elevator because that's considered work. Like they just know how to rest, and they also know how to work hard because in their time of the week that they work, they're hard workers. And I think it reminded me that I can have that rhythm to my week too. And it doesn't just have to be like that one day that you set aside for the Lord. It can be a whole 3 days. Like the fact that they do that is just wild to me. And I think it's kind of foreign being an American and being in such a fast-paced culture, and one that isn't really willing to be as present as people over there. And every culture over there is seeming to, like, they have that heart for rest and family. And I think that we could learn a lot from them for sure.
Amen. Amen. To me, the Sabbath is such a beautiful thing. Like, I wish we could bring it back here. It's you look at the 10 Commandments, it's like, don't kill someone, don't sleep with someone's wife, and then like rest. Like, to me, the more I read this book, I'm just like, man, God's like obsessed with us just like resting in him. And yet, like, that's the one thing we don't do, right? We're like, but how do I do it? That's a good word, sis. I appreciate that. All right, last question. You are how old?
22.
22. And you guys have been married for 2 years now? 1 year, 2 years? Year and a half?
A year and 4 months.
Okay. So,
yeah,
as someone who's got married young, what advice would you give to a young person who's either engaged or thinking about getting married? Or, I don't know, to me, like, Israel is like my jam, but like right next to it is marriage, like, and blowing up the bubble that is easy, or that it's all gumdrops and lollipops. Like, it takes work. It sometimes it takes just holding on to that commitment. So I'll stop talking now, but like, what would you say to a young person who's considering going down that path?
Yeah, I would say that it is a path of like not least resistance for sure. But it's one that is, if you feel called to it, if you feel like the person that you have been pursued by or pursuing, and you just know that that's the next step, then the Lord's going to honor that, and he's going to teach you so many things along the way. I think the first year of our marriage, which was a few months ago, that we finished it, I think we realized just how much we thought we were right in our ways, and thought that like the way that we lived our lives was the only right way. But then you put another person into the picture with you, and you're like, well, there's a lot of things we either need to compromise on, or we need to like unlearn from our families. And I think that's one thing that I didn't really notice would happen beforehand, the fact that our families are so different. And that's beautiful. It's great that you come from different families and backgrounds, but to say that that's not going to cause either like, problems or tension, or, at least something you need to address, would be foolish. Because if you do things differently your whole life and then you come together and you try to make it work, you almost have to create a new rhythm. And our new rhythm is just acknowledging that our past was our past and our families are our families, and we love them, and we don't think either way was right or wrong. But we think that for us and our personalities and how we want to raise our kids and all of that is being morphed and changed every day. And we're like unlearning what we always, thought was right or wrong about our parents, and trying to create like this biblical version, but also like dismantling our pride and sin and all of that is a daily thing. So I would just say be prepared for not being right all the time and being willing to be selfless and humble. And a lot of times you think that that's just you got to make that choice once, but you got to make that choice again and again and again and again.
Amen.
And you would say amen to that. Yep. You just
Well, sis, thank you so much. Love you. Love your husband. God bless you both.
Thank you, Raj. Love you guys so much.